We are talking Headless Horseman, a 2007 made-for sci-fi movie, also known as Darkness Night. Now this one is directed by Anthony C. Ferrate and it stars Richard Moll. I think he's probably the most recognisable name here. Obviously a stalwart in B-movie history. The story here isn't based on Irving's Sleepy Hollow story, although they expect that's obviously the kind of the most familiar story of Headless Horseman. Instead, this takes place in a town called Wormwood, in the kind of the outback of America somewhere. And I would basically describe this movie as one part Wrong Turn, one part Sleepy Hollow. It focuses on 7 college kids as they get kind of marooned in this kind of backwards small kind of village, and the locals there all seem very kind of weird, and they have this weird festival every kind of 7 years where they have to ultimately sacrifice 7 people to the Headless Horseman. And of course our group of college friends intend to be the latest victims. So can they survive the onslaught of both the townfolk and the Headless Horseman? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss. So this is obviously made for TV, and that's such. It obviously has a kind of TV feel to it, a kind of like a low budget, kind of very quick shoot production feel to it. It was shot in Romania. An interesting anecdote on this one, there's actually a scene that takes place in a junkyard, and apparently there was actually a real death that occurred there some years before. And this junkyard is apparently haunted and strange things were starting to happen, and they had to get a priest to kind of like bless it and all that. Interesting little fact there for you. So the film, I've got to say, I actually had quite a lot of fun with this movie. It's a cheesy made-for-TV film, and thus such, it doesn't tend to be very original. The characters are all very much kind of stock characters. There's no real depth to them. They're all very kind of surfacey, if that makes sense. It's very cheesy, but it still kind of goes at a fair old pace, I would say. And it's fairly gory for a TV movie. Obviously, with a Headless Horseman who wants to take heads of his victims, you'd expect it to be somewhat gory. And they do a good job of some practical effects here, with kind of the gore and kind of the beheadings and decapitations. There's quite a lot of that, as you'd probably expect. That's quite fun. I thought the actual Headless Horseman looks quite good. They do kind of, a lot of the time, crop him. So you don't actually see kind of like from the neck up really, so he's kind of out of frame. Now it's a little bit of a cheat really, because obviously it's just a way to kind of get around budgetary restraints and ultimately just kind of have people to react to go whilst you don't actually ever see him without the head. We do, but not very often. So that was a little bit disappointing. And then through the movie he's collecting these heads, and ultimately it grows his own head back, and you basically end up looking a little bit like Freddy Krueger. What doesn't work for me with this film is a couple of things. I mean, this is a 2007 film, so at this point it's 10 years old. The CGI looks a bit crap. I mean, it was low budget TV CGI in 2007, so in 2017 it kind of looks pretty bad, unfortunately. Very video game style kind of, you know, CGI, but I didn't think it would look good even back then. The thing that stood out for me the most is some really poorly executed action scenes. 2 in particular that stand out. There's a kind of a shootout between the townsfolk and a kind of a local sheriff, and it's the most ridiculous shootout you've ever seen. Everyone literally just standing out in the open, not attempting to cover, and just gunning each other down. It's so stupid. And then we have a kind of a bladed weapon fight between the Headless Horseman and one of our kind of like 7 protagonists, basically. And again, the choreography here looks ridiculous. They generally look like they're trying to hit each other's weapons and stuff like that, rather than trying to go for, you know, a body shot or anything like that. It's quite fun. The action sequences are terribly choreographed and kind of terribly shot. So obviously there's a clear weakness in the director here. Also, it does tend to skip over kind of plot points kind of quite quickly. You know, obviously it's not trying to be an in-depth movie. People just seem to kind of like make leaps in logic and kind of to get to the next plot point. The whole thing with this kind of sword is very kind of this kind of sword that apparently can kill the Headless Horseman. It's a very quickly, you know, the point is gotten to very quickly, and they find out where it is and what's happened very easily and without very little effort. It could have been you know, if you're thinking about it, it could have been anywhere. But anyway, so it's super cheesy. I still kind of like the effects. The Headless Horseman is one of these kind of characters that always fascinated me when I was a kid. It's kind of a scary concept. We do see him in one scene ride a bike, but it's a very, very quick shot, and I know one of the alternate covers has got him riding a bike, but don't be expecting that a whole lot. They get a little bit of a kind of a prologue in kind of the American Civil War as well. It's a stupid TV sci-fi movie. It's pretty much what you're going to expect. I still had kind of fun. I've got to say, I kind of quite like the cheesiness in this movie, and the kind of the actual character themselves and the beheadings and the actual practical makeup I thought was okay. So if you can get past its clear low budget and quick production, and you kind of like your B-movie types, you kind of may get a kick out of this one. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.